Hello ladies and gentle ladies, and welcome to the 1.20 series for Minecraft modding on Forge. So, as I'm sure all of you are aware, 1.20 has just released, and finally Forge has released for it 8 hours ago as of recording this. So we're going to start back with the tutorials and hopefully get through them at a decent pace. So, first of all, if you're coming from 1.19.4, I will leave this great primer in the description made by Champion Ash. So obviously a massive thanks to him, because this is very helpful and it goes through basically all of the different changes between 1.19.4 and 1.20. So if you're updating an existing mod, this will be extremely helpful. As you can see, it goes in tons of detail, which is insane. Basically every single change, maybe missing one or two, you never know. It's hard to get everything, of course, but there's a lot here. So this is pretty much everything you should need. So this will be linked in the description of this video, so you can go and check that out if you need that. But let's get started with 1.20. So the first thing we're going to need to do is install Java if you haven't already. So as far as I am aware, 1.20 still uses Java 17. So we can come and get that from adoptium.net, or at least that's what I will be using. You can choose to use Amazon, Corretto, or whatever you want. Even Oracle is okay, but I just prefer to use the Open JDK. And you want JDK 17. If you don't see that here, you can go into other platforms and versions and just select it. So I'm using Windows x64. That's very important that you choose x64. You just want the JDK and then the version 17. And then you want to hit the MSI for Windows. So you just download that, and that will bring us a download. I'm just going to give that a save into my F drive, and we'll see that downloads. That will take a moment, so we'll leave that and move on to IntelliJ IDEA. So that's what I'm going to be using, IntelliJ. You can use Eclipse if you wish, or you could theoretically use VS Code. However, I really don't recommend that you use VS Code, and I'll just stick with a proper Java IDE such as IntelliJ and Eclipse, because they will make your life a billion times easier. So all we need to do for getting IntelliJ is press download, and here you can choose either the Ultimate or the Community Edition. So the Community Edition is free and the Ultimate Edition is paid for. However, if you are a student, you can apply for the Education Pack, which will get you this Ultimate Edition for free, which is great. So I do already have the Ultimate Edition, but I'll just show you the Community Edition download as well. So we'll put that also in our downloads folder. And now our Java should be installed. So if you go ahead, in fact I will show my desktop here. So there we go, there's the JDK 17. So you just want to double click that and you should see it starts the install window. Just want to go next, and you want to make sure that some of these are set. So add to path, just make sure that one of these is checked. I tend to just do entire feature, and same with the jar and same with the Java home. You don't need to worry about this JavaSoft thing. That's an old thing that doesn't really happen anymore. You just need to make sure that you have these three, these top three here, and then you just want to hit next, and then you can hit install. Now I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do that, but yeah, you can do that if you wish. Oh well, you would need to, of course. So I want to cancel that, and then you just hit finish when you're done. Okay, and then you can remove the installer, of course, because you don't need that. And okay, my IntelliJ is not quite done, so we'll move on to Forge. So I'm going to come onto my E drive to do this. And I've made a new folder called tutorials. Now you can put this wherever you want, this folder, and this will basically be the folder of your mod. So I create a new folder in here. You can obviously put this on your desktop if you wish, and this will just be whatever your mod is called. So this is, I was about to do 1.19, but this is 1.20. Can you believe that? 1.20 tutorial mod. Boom. You can have spaces, you can have whatever you want. This is just the name of the mod. Say, for example, you were doing a space mod, you would just call it space mod. That's a terrible name, but you know, it's up to you what you call it, really. So my IntelliJ has actually now finished. Or, no, it's not. Okay, it hasn't finished. Oh, no, it has finished. Just taking a while. So I'll move that onto my desktop as well. And you can just hit run on that, so double click. And you'll get the UAC prompt, which you probably can't see, but you just want to hit yes on that, of course. Hit next on the installer. You have the install location. You can add these if you want. I'm not going to worry about that. And then you just want to hit install. Once again, I'm not going to do that because I already have it installed. But you can do that if you want to use IntelliJ. Eclipse is very similar. I'll have the download links for both in the description. And then after you're done, you can delete the installer. Fantastic. So the next thing we're going to want to do is download Forge. So we need to download the MDK. As you can see, this was only released 8 hours ago. So this is the latest version for me, but you'll want to download whatever the latest version is for you. If you're watching this sometime in the future, there might also be a recommended version. So if I go 1.19.4, you'll see there's also a recommended version. Generally, or in fact, in almost every circumstance, you want to download the latest version and not the recommended version. The recommended version is more of really just a stable version rather than what is actually recommended. So you want to download the latest, and we just want the MDK. So hit MDK, and you'll get this ad here just so that Forge gets their money, and you just want to hit skip up at the top right. And then you want to download the MDK to wherever you want it to be. So mine is on my E drive and in the tutorials folder. And you just want to put this in your mod folder. So hit save. That will download, and you'll see that's already done because it's not very big. So once we have done that, we can come to this zip here, we can right click, and you can do extract all, and you just want to extract it all to this same folder, and you'll see a bunch of files get added. Now I'm going to delete some because we don't need all of these. So for example, readme, we don't need that. License, we don't need that. The MDK, we don't need that anymore. Credits, changelog, we don't need those either. So just delete those, and that should be everything we need. But that's basically all we're going to need to do, and now we just need to open it in IntelliJ. So let's open IntelliJ, and you should get a screen something like this. Now you see I already have a bunch of projects here. You wouldn't have those if you just installed it. But we're going to hit open, and we just want to select our folder basically. So mine is in my E drive, as I said, tutorials and 1.20 tutorial mod, and press OK. And then we can close our file explorer because we don't need that anymore. So we'll just let Gradle download. You can see we're using Gradle 8 now. And if you want, you can view the process in this little build window here. It's going to download Gradle, and then it's going to go through all of the dependencies, download all of that, and download all of the assets. So this may take a while. What this is essentially doing is it's running that command I was talking about. It's running our Gradle W gen IntelliJ runs. So we'll just let this go through, and I'll be back with you once this has finished. Okay, so you see I actually had an error here, and this is going to be rather common when you're starting out so early after a Forge version just releases. But basically there's currently an issue with the MDK. So if you're also getting this error, you'll need to come down into your Gradle.properties, and you'll see here where it says the Forge version, we just need to remove the 1.20 dash and just hit this elephant reload button, and you'll see it will start again, and this time it should work. So that's just a bug with Forge as it's just released. Hopefully that will be fixed by the time you're watching this video. Yeah, but I'll be back with you once again once this has finished. Alright everyone, so as I'm sure you probably could have guessed, it didn't work again. So classic Forge moment. I had to run Gradle stop. So I just went to terminal down here, went /Gradle -- stop, because I was getting some errors. Just a classic Forge moment really, but that did fix it, or at least it seems to. It seems to be going through and doing everything now. So if you do get some errors, something to do with the project scope services, and something to do with maybe runtime class path copy, if you get errors like that, just go into terminal, type /Gradle -- stop, or Gradle W, as some people say, Gradle stop, and if you hit enter and run that, and then once again do the elephant refresh, then it should work. I don't exactly know why that happens. That's a little bit beyond me, but it does seem to fix it. So hopefully this is actually about to finish. Should we wait for it? You go downloading the loader, the sources. Yeah, this should be about to finish. But yeah, that should just be an issue with it being a new Forge. Hopefully, once again, as I say, by the time this video releases, hopefully the latest version fixes this, so that you don't have to do this. But we'll see. We'll see. If not, then everyone can start using brass, maybe, you know? That is a joke, by the way, and if you don't know what brass is, that's my mod loader, but don't worry about it, just a little bit of a joke. So yeah, there you go, you can see it's now indexing. So that's all the Gradle stuff done, and we can still continue while that's indexing, and continue doing everything we want to do. So let's talk through the whole kind of project structure here, and we'll go through what everything is, what you can touch, what you shouldn't touch, and etc. So we'll go from top to bottom. Actually, let's open it in File Explorer first, because there's some things we'll see in there that aren't showing up in IntelliJ, which actually we can change that. So if I go tree appearance, I should be able to see excluded files. Yeah, just excluded files. So first of all, we have the .gradle folder. So this just holds your Gradle installation. Don't touch that, basically. We have the .idea folder, which is just our IntelliJ stuff. If you're on Eclipse, you'll have a .eclipse folder. You'll have you have a .project. You have your stuff like that. Same with VS Code. I believe you have some file or something. Don't touch those. They're just configuration stuff that your IDE will need. Then we have the build folder. So this is just basically all the Minecraft sources and etc. You shouldn't really touch these either. That's why you'll see they're orange, because normally these would be excluded so you don't see them, but we've chosen to see them. Then once again we have another Gradle folder, which is for the Gradle wrapper. Don't touch that. If you do ever need to upgrade the Gradle version, then obviously you would do that in here, but we're not going to need to do that, so leave that alone. Then we have the source folder. So this is where all of our code is going to be, and all of our resources, and really everything inside of our mod. So you see first we have the generated folder, and this is for data gen, which will allow you to programmatically generate different resources. This is something we'll cover in a future tutorial, possibly maybe just a rough idea, episode 14 maybe. That's just a pure guess. It might end up being sooner or later, we'll see. But that is something we'll cover in the future. But for now you don't need to see it, so just collapse it. Then we have main, so this is where all of your main stuff is, all of your code, all of your resources. So you'll see we first have Java, which is all of your code, and then resources, which are, you guessed it, all of your resources. I'll close that. So in Java you'll see we have the com example mod. So this is just literally what it says, an example mod. There's a bunch of stuff in here. And in the resources we have a meta inf folder. So this is basically all of the meta stuff, meta info, as the folder suggests. It's really quite self-explanatory if you think about it. And inside of there we currently just have the mods.toml. And the mods.toml is basically, it tells Forge everything about your mod. So the loader you're using, the loader version, the license, the mod ID, the version, the display name, etc, etc. And we'll go through this in a minute to kind of fix some of this stuff. And you'll also see we have a pack.mc meta. So this is just for your resource pack and your data pack. Those will both use this file here, so you should just leave this alone really. And then we have the test folder. So this is for if you are going to do like testing using, I think, Minecraft's testing thing. I'm not really going to cover that because it's a bit obscure and really most people wouldn't use it. It's a nice thing to have, but generally you can just ignore it. And if you want, even, you can just delete that folder. So just remove and then delete. You can do that, that's fine. You can also do the same with generated as well if you don't intend to use data gen, but you might find that keeps popping back up when you like reload Gradle and stuff, so just leave it really. Then we have the get attributes. So this is just literally as it says, get attributes. So it's stuff for get. If you're not using get, then leave this file alone. I would just leave it alone anyways, really. Then we have the gradlew.bat or gradlew.bat. Just leave this alone once again. That's the Forge Gradle script. Then we have the get ignore. So you can just ignore stuff from showing up to get. You can leave that alone too, really. A lot of these files you should just leave alone. Then we have the build.gradle. So this is just your build script. You see this is quite complex. And if you're new, you might be quite confused in what's happening here. Really, once again, I would just leave this alone. The only reason you would ever need to really touch this is if you're doing something complex, or if you're adding a dependency, which you would do in the repositories and dependency blocks here. But we'll cover that in the future. For now, we can just basically ignore those. So we can close that. Then we have the settings.gradle. So these are just a bunch of Forge settings. Once again, leave that alone. Gradle.properties. So this is actually quite important, and this is if you need to change anything about your properties. So for example, you want to change the Minecraft version, you do it here. You got version range, you got your Forge version, the Forge version range, etc. You got your mapping channel. Eventually we'll set that to Parchment, but not right now, and I'll explain that in the future because Parchment hasn't released yet, but soon, hopefully. You got your mod ID here, which we'll talk about in a minute. You got the mod name, you got the mod license, the mod version, and etc, etc, all in here. And then finally you just have this Gradle W file, which is once again just a bunch of Gradle stuff that you should leave alone. So let's go through and let's actually get this up and running and our mod working. So first of all, I'm going to come into the main Java. I'm just going to delete this com.example, and we're going to make it ourselves. So I'm going to create a new package. Now, generally, you would put this as a domain that you own. So, for example, I own the domain turtyworthy.dev. So I would actually call this dev.turtyworthy, and then you put the name of the project. So, tutorial mod. If you don't own a domain, you can use a GitHub domain, and for that you could do io.github dot and then your username dot project name. You can do that too. Alternatively, you can just remove the IO part. Some people do that. It's up to you, really. It doesn't really matter. You can even do like com.github. This is a bit strange, but you can do that too. That's what you would do really if you don't own a domain. Otherwise, just use your domain. But it's important that you invert it. I don't really know why, but that's just what everyone does. So I would also recommend doing that just to keep with convention. It's just best for people that are seeing your mod and yourself to keep with the conventions. So I'm going to put this back tutorial mod, and inside of here I'm going to create a new class, and this will be the name of your mod. So this will be what I will call your main file or your main class. You can call it main. That is completely possible. You can call it whatever you want, really, but I wouldn't call it that because there's other files called main and you might get a bit confused. Instead, I would just call it what your mod is. So my mod is a tutorial mod, so I would just call it tutorial mod. If your mod was a farming simulator mod, you might call it farming simulator. My mod, for example, Industria, I have the main class called Industria. I don't call it Industria mod because its name is just Industria. For example, I could just call this tutorial, but I think tutorial doesn't really make much sense in this context. It looks a bit weird, and I think it's easier to just have it be tutorial mod, which is what I'm going to leave it as. But what you call that is up to you. Just make it make sense, really, and make it so other people can understand that this is your main class. Think of the main class, by the way, as your entry point to the mod. This is where everything gets loaded from. So if something isn't really being referenced in your main class, then there's a high chance that's why maybe it's not loading or etc. But we can talk about that in the future when it comes to things that might be affected by that. So to declare in Forge that this is a mod, we simply do that by doing @mod above the class, and inside of here we pass our mod ID. So I'm just going to do tutorial mod .mod_id. Now this is just a string, so you can alternatively just put a string in here and say tutorial mod, which needs to be lowercase, by the way. No spaces, no special symbols, just lowercase normal characters like that. A to Z, 0 to 9 dashes, dots, I think, are the only allowed characters. So you can do that, but I like to just create a constant for that. So, public static final string mod ID, and I like to just set that here. Once again, it needs to be lowercase, and it's important that you remember whatever this is, right? Because this will be used throughout your whole entire modding process, and you can't really change it after you set it. You can kind of, but you would have to go through all of your assets, all of your data, all of your resources, and change it. So that's why generally, A, you make a constant, so you don't have to do that with code as well, and B, try and keep it something that you know it's going to stay as. For example, I wouldn't recommend calling this like untitled project, for example, or just untitled, right? I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's a pain to change it afterwards. And in reality, that's also the same with whatever you called this folder. You can't really, you can change it afterwards, don't get me wrong. There's just a lot of things you might have to go through and actually change, but that's why I just recommend leaving it as something you know it's gonna stay as. But this is fine, that's all we need for the actual mod to load. Now the important thing is we do need to go and set that in our Gradle.properties. So in here you'll see we've got the mod ID. This is set to example mod, but we need to set it to what our mod ID is. So as you can see, we just called it tutorial mod, so we'll put that in. We've got the mod name, so that's tutorial mod. License, so I'm just going to be using MIT. Please choose a good license. You know, you can figure that out. Mod version, I'll just leave that there. Mod group ID, so this is just basically whatever you put as your root package here. So mine is dev.30worty.tutorial mod. You got the mod authors, so that's just me, 30worty, by the way. And you got your description, which this is a tutorial mod. And you can remove all the comments here if you want. Just be careful not to remove any of these things, because these are quite important. It should say like what's optional, what's not optional, and you can set that all up. And we'll leave all of this stuff here. That's fine for now. Now what we will just do in our meta-inf mods.toml is make sure everything is fine in here. So you see here where it's using $, and then these brackets and then a name of something. This is actually referring to what we just set in our Gradle.properties. So you see in here we have mod underscore ID, and in here we have $ bracket mod underscore ID bracket. So that's just referring to whatever is set in here. It needs to be exactly the same. So you can also like make new variables in here if you wanted. I don't know exactly what you would do. Maybe like I don't know, beans is equal 5, right? You could just come in here and say $ brackets beans, and that would work, I think. But I don't know why you would do that, so don't do that, I guess. And yeah, with that done, we can just reload Gradle again with the elephant up here. And that will go through and rebuild everything probably, so that might take a hot minute. But once that's done, we can basically run the game from there. So if you come up to your runs up here, you'll see there's no run configuration. I already have Gen IntelliJ runs because I was messing around with some things. So you want to come to the Gradle tab on the right and just hit Forge Gradle runs inside of tasks, and then go run client. You also see run data, run game tester, and run server. We'll talk about those in the future. But for now, we just want to run client. And this is going to take a moment because we're currently doing a Gradle build. But once that's complete, we should see that the game starts to run. So I'll see you once the game has loaded. Oh, I must mention, you might see there's like a bunch of what looks like errors here whilst you're running the client. I wouldn't worry about these. They're not really errors. They're more so just like deprecated stuff inside of Forge and Minecraft and etc. So don't really worry about those. They're not going to cause you any issues. So yeah, that should be kind of all you need to worry about. If they're happening inside of this compile Java task, they shouldn't really be an issue unless there is something that's referencing your code in there. So if it mentions your package name inside of here instead of net minecraft util thread, for example, then you know that means it's to do with your code instead of whatever. So you see here we have Minecraft, you know, as you would expect, with the new icon and everything. So we've got narrator. I don't know why that's here, really. Can you leave, please? Continue. There we go. We don't want the narrator. So I don't know how loud Minecraft is right now, so I'm just going to turn it down just in case. Also, let's do that. I'll go master volume 20. And if we just go to the mods here, you can see we have tutorial mod, mod ID tutorial mod, authors 30worty. This is the tutorial mod, that's the description, license MIT, and you'll see that's all come from this Gradle.properties down here, and likewise from the mods.toml. So that's pretty amazing, right? And you can, play the game as usual. So, create a new world, load in, and you have your mod in the game. And obviously in the next tutorial we'll cover adding items and then blocks and then creative tabs, food, tools, armor, entities, block entities, energy, fluids, etc, etc. But for now, you can see we're in, and should just check that we're in 1.20. I like to just grab the sniffer and the camel, or what is actually a giraffe, and spawn these in. Amazing. Look at that giraffe. If you get the reference, you get it. If you don't get the reference, I apologize. But yeah, amazing. I have nothing else to say, really. So obviously, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next tutorial where we'll add our first item. Goodbye.